on this Saturday night, the COVID-19 tax. From the dentist to the stylist, the extra fees.
I think it's outrageous to ask something like this.
Are Canadian consumers getting gouged? The cautious optimism about a vaccine breakthrough.
Never before have we dumped infinite resources into a vaccine development.
The potential vaccine that could soon be tested on Canadians. Canada's aggressive campaign for a seat on the Security Council. And the rise in anti-Asian crimes.
This is the most disrespectful, degrading thing one human being can do to another.
A new campaign to stop the hate.
Global National with Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. This weekend, more Canadians are feeling a growing sense of freedom. Many shops and restaurants are welcoming back customers after being shut down for more than 2 months. But they're facing higher costs while operating at reduced capacity under new rules. As Morganne Campbell reports, some businesses are passing the buck onto consumers.
On any given weekend, this place would be abuzz with clients in salon chairs and chatter over blow dryers.
This is a regular surgical mask, which we're going to use.
But in the time of COVID, there are no regular business hours. This Toronto salon is preparing to reopen with a new business plan.
We're not making any money off this.
Extended hours, limitations on the number of customers allowed, improved sanitization methods, and a barrage of personal protective equipment. And it comes with a price tag, a $3 surcharge.
We came up to the number because it pays for the basic costs of what we're going to use.
Some businesses are tacking on a COVID surcharge as they navigate through the pandemic. COVID has hit retailers hard. New data this week from Statistics Canada shows about 40% of retailers closed their doors in March, but not all customers are willing to pay a little bit extra.
Why in the time where their own clients are facing financial uncertainty would they put an additional charge on to pay for their business costs?
Cassandra Brown says she was going to be charged an additional $10 for her appointment, says her Calgary dentist shoulders the cost of PPE. Consumer experts say surcharges may push customers away.
If they do seek charges, it should be made known to the public so we can at least have a choice whether to deal with that company or not.
Business experts suggest not many will implement a charge, and for those who do, it'll likely be a small fee.
I think that there are many Canadians that understand that small businesses are struggling just like they are.
The Canadian Federation of Independent Business conducted a survey of its members, which found that on average, business owners have lost about $200,000 since this pandemic hits. Robin?
Morganne Campbell reporting tonight. While more businesses are getting the green light to reopen, Canada's COVID-19 cases keep climbing, and the biggest spikes are still coming from 2 provinces. Today, Quebec recorded 697 new cases and 75 more deaths. And the rate of infection continues to rise in Ontario, with 412 new cases today and 27 new deaths. Most new cases in that province are now coming from community spread. The race is on around the world to develop a COVID-19 vaccine, but it is definitely a marathon, not a sprint. Abigail Bimman has an update on an experimental vaccine with a Canadian connection and other advancements around the globe.
For the 124 groups racing to produce a COVID-19 vaccine, there are 3 testing phases to work through, and a group with a Canadian connection just published positive phase 1 results.
It looks to see if the vaccine is safe in humans, and it also will look to see if people can mount an appropriate immune reaction to the vaccine. That means you're given the vaccine, and then your body does what it's supposed to do. It makes what's called antibodies.
That's what happened with CanSino Biologics' potential vaccine, tested on 108 adults in Wuhan, China. In the coming weeks, it will be tested on Canadians. Dalhousie University is a partner. If all goes well, the National Research Council could produce thousands of doses each week. But that is still a long way away. Dr. Isaac Bogosh is optimistic there will be a vaccine eventually.
Certainly, I don't think it's fair to compare the duration of time to creating a COVID-19 vaccine from other vaccines, because never before have we dumped infinite resources into a vaccine development?
This week, the U.S. announced it would provide up to $1.2 billion to drug company AstraZeneca to fund a phase 3 trial testing 30,000 Americans this summer. Friday, researchers at Oxford University announced they're ready to expand to phase 2. That vaccine would be manufactured in India. The Serum Institute is working with half a dozen candidates.
We're all in a race to battle the disease. There's no one-upmanship here. Of course, the sooner we get it, the sooner we can save lives. And, that's all we're trying to do here, and scale it up as soon as we can.
And even though we're still a far way off, experts say it's not too early to talk about logistics.
It needs to be thought through. Because what if the vaccine requires 2 doses, not just 1, to provide some degree of immunity? And what if the immunity only lasts a year and you have to revaccinate next year, like we do with flu?
So a lot of logistics yet to be worked out, as well as a lot of questions such as who would get it first and what to do about people who don't want to be vaccinated. Abigail Bimman, Global News, Ottawa.
The House of Commons is scheduled to return on Monday, and tonight we're getting a sense of how it may work during the pandemic. The Liberals have put forward a motion proposing 4 hybrid meetings a week, plus a handful of summer sittings, so some MPs will be in the room, others will join online. The sittings would also allow for longer question periods. On Wednesday, a BC Supreme Court justice will rule on the case of Meng Wanzhou. The CFO of Huawei is accused of violating U.S. sanctions, and the Trump administration wants her extradited to face charges there. The case has put a strain on Canada's relationship with China because after her arrest, 2 Canadians were detained in Beijing, seen as a tit for tat. Our Mercedes Stephenson joins us to talk about the diplomatic acrimony. Mercedes.
Robin, as the global community reels from China's announcement that it will impose a national security law on Hong Kong, Canada is still fighting its own diplomatic battle with China over the 2 Canadian men, Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, who have now been detained for over 500 days by Beijing. Neither has been seen or heard from by Canadian officials in over 4 months now. Last weekend on the West Bloc, China's ambassador to Canada made a clear link between the cases of the 2 Michaels and the arrest of Meng Wanzhou, the CFO of Huawei. That clear linkage is a change in tone for the Chinese government. This week on the show, we'll ask former ambassador to China David Mulroney what he thought of the comments.
He made no bones about connecting the Meng Wanzhou case with the detention of the 2 Michaels. And I think what we're getting there is the mask slipping. China is now no longer worrying about pretending that there is some legal reason for detaining our 2 citizens. And they're showing both a power play to intimidate us, and they're showing contempt, frankly, to Canada and to Canadians. And we're seeing this in more of their diplomatic announcements and messages. But we're seeing the real China in all of this.
So just how does China see Canada going forward as this country tries to negotiate the release of our citizens?
China sees Canada as a vassal state of the United States, as a minor country that it can push around. And part of their great anger at the Meng Wanzhou process and the fact that she's facing extradition hearings is China's outrage that a country as small as Canada would dare to do this.
We'll also talk to David Mulroney about the situation in Hong Kong and what Canada should be doing to respond. Plus, we'll sit down with Finance Minister Bill Morneau and Conservative leadership candidate Peter MacKay. Robin?
And you can see that all tomorrow on the West Bloc with Mercedes Stephenson. Canada's campaign for a United Nations Security Council seat is in overdrive. The Prime Minister had several virtual meetings last week with key voting blocs, and more are on the way in the days ahead. The vote is next month, and as our David Akin is here to tell us, it's a 50-50 bet as to whether Canada succeeds. David.
Well, Robin, there are 2 seats up for grabs in the group of countries Canada belongs to, but there are 3 contestants: Canada, Norway, and Ireland. Norway and Ireland started their campaigns for the seat years ago. Canada, by contrast, is late to the game. And in a series of last-minute pitches, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is emphasizing Canada's status as a middle power with a diverse, multicultural population.
We are big enough to make a difference on the council, but small enough to know that we can't do it alone. Our capacity to pull people together, to represent and reflect the diversity of the planet within our own population and make that diversity and difference a source of strength.
In the last 7 days, Trudeau has held separate virtual meetings with ambassadors from Eastern European countries, from the Asia-Pacific region, and from Arab states. The PMO has more meetings like that in store with other regional blocs in the week ahead. In doing so, Trudeau is tying his own political capital to the outcome of the Security Council vote.
Well, I think the Prime Minister has put his personal commitment to this file, and as a result, he's going to be the face of it no matter what. He's more popular abroad, although right now he's quite popular at home as well, but he is still popular abroad, and therefore his presence matters and is helpful in these sorts of elections.
Trudeau believes the pandemic will change the global order in ways comparable to the period after the Second World War, when new international institutions were created and new alignments emerged. So for him, that makes this Security Council election more vital than ever.
And Canada having a voice at the UN Security Council will allow us to continue to be at the heart of those discussions as we move forward as a planet.
Now, diplomats and government sources believe that Norway is a lock to win one of the seats, and that right now it's a toss-up between Canada and Ireland for the second one. The vote is June 21st. Robin?
David Akin in Ottawa. Thanks, David. In Nova Scotia, about 1,000 people have been forced to leave their homes as crews battle an out-of-control forest fire. Several crews have been working to contain the fire since it ignited early this afternoon. It has burned at least 40 hectares so far. At least 3 aircraft have been brought in to douse the flames. Fire officials say the dry and windy conditions are helping the flames spread. In San Francisco, a 4-alarm fire ravaged a warehouse on one of the city's historic piers. Flames lit up the pre-dawn sky as more than 150 firefighters fought the blaze on land and on the water. The warehouse, which contained a fish processing plant, partially collapsed. Firefighters were able to save a Second World War-era ship, which was docked at the pier. It's a holiday weekend in the U.S., and crowds of Americans are headed out to beaches, parks, restaurants, and bars after months of stay-at-home orders. There are concerns that will lead to a new spike in COVID-19 cases in the country hit hardest by the pandemic. As Jennifer Johnson reports, a new research model predicts a hasty return to normal may backfire.
We just wanted to get a taste of normalcy again and see what it's like to be inside a business that's running semi-normally at least.
Temperature checks for gamblers, more outdoor seating at restaurants, stricter cleaning at arcades. But the CDC is now downplaying the transmission risk of COVID-19 from surfaces while re-emphasizing the danger of close human contact.
One of the things we have to do is really ensure that customers are maintaining, not playing the game that's right next to another player, and at the same time make sure our staff wipes everything down.
The CDC has estimated 25 to 50% of Americans could be asymptomatic and unknowingly spread the virus. In some cities this weekend, law enforcement is busting places not enforcing social distancing, like this San Diego bar already forced to close.
We simply cannot tolerate such blatant and intentional violations of the public health order.
With more people out, one research model from Imperial College London, based on cell phone data and not yet peer-reviewed, predicts the death rate could spike to 1,000 people a day by July in California and Florida. But White House experts are more optimistic, saying 42 states have less than 10% of their populations testing positive.
Please, as you go out this weekend, understand you can go out, you can be outside, you can play golf, you can play tennis with marked balls. You can go to the beaches if you stay 6 feet apart.
Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Virginia now have the highest percentage of new cases, but the Mid-Atlantic beaches are open. Another example of why health experts are nervous about busy weekends like this one and the summer months to come. Jennifer Johnson, Global News, Washington.
Still ahead, the troubles facing Brazil's president. Crews have retrieved the black box from that plane that crashed in Pakistan. The first funerals were held today for some of the victims. 2 passengers survived. At least 97 people were killed. The pilot told air traffic control he was having engine trouble just before issuing a mayday call. One survivor says the flight proceeded normally until its descent when there was a sudden jolt. A profanity-laced video of Brazil's president is causing new controversy tonight.
Os caras querem a nossa hemorroida.
In it, Jair Bolsonaro expresses frustration at his inability to get information from police. He also vows to change cabinet ministers if needed to protect his family. The Supreme Court ordered the footage be released as part of an investigation into allegations the president was trying to interfere in the federal police for personal gain. Bolsonaro isn't taking the COVID-19 crisis seriously, calling it a little flu. But the World Health Organization disagrees and says South America is a new epicenter of the pandemic. A number of countries in that part of the world have seen a major increase in cases. The change is in large part because Brazil overtook the United Kingdom this week for 3rd place in overall number of COVID-19 cases.
We've seen many South American countries with increasing numbers of cases, and clearly there's a concern across many of those countries, but certainly the most affected is Brazil at this point.
Brazil now has the fastest growth of infections in the world. There are more than 330,000 confirmed cases in the country, and more than 21,000 people have died from the virus. But experts believe those numbers are likely higher because of a lack of testing. Still ahead, the campaign to focus on health, not hate. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is calling on Canadians to stand up and speak out against racism. Across the country, attacks targeting Asian communities have been on the rise ever since the pandemic began. In Vancouver alone, 29 anti-Asian hate crimes have been reported so far this year. In 2019, only 4 were reported in the same span, marking an increase of 600%. Global BC's John Waugh looks at one group's solution to filter out the hate.
We don't care because we love food.
Trixie Ling teaches others what some consider a taste of home can be a bridge towards acceptance for newcomers, hoping for a new beginning.
We really want to create this place of not just acceptance, but really belonging.
But the founder of Flavors of Hope recently became a target of hate, just one of a growing number of anti-Asian crimes tied to the COVID-19 pandemic.
As we got closer, he then made some really direct sexual and racist comments at me, and I just ignored him.
That's when she says the young Caucasian male spat in her face.
This is the most disrespectful, degrading thing one human being can do to another.
Now the community is banding together with a new campaign to counter this hate.
I lived here my whole life. I've not encountered a single incidence of racism. And now when I go outside, I feel, oh, I need to be careful.
It starts with a call out for public figures to send in a simple photo. Those pictures are then transformed into a powerful statement.
I thought it was so powerful how they chose to use the masks for the pandemic, of course, and not turning a blind eye. If you see something, say something. If you hear something, do something.
And it's not just community leaders and celebrities that are being asked to join. Anyone can take part in this social media campaign. Thanks to a new filter now launched on Instagram. And the message is clear during this pandemic. The focus should be on health, not hate.
So we cannot let the few people who are doing these racist acts take over the story.
Trixie Ling is doing just that by taking a stand against racism some worry has always been there, now just being pushed to the surface by this pandemic. John Hua, Global News.
Up next, can a divided Britain finally come together? Remember Brexit? Seems so long ago now, but this June marks 4 years since Britain voted to leave the EU. That vote divided a nation. Now the pandemic is the focus, and as Crystal Gomansing explains, the health crisis has given the country a new sense of optimism.
At first glance, it's hard to figure out what's happening at this tiny shop.
It's a music store, but there are fresh baguettes, and a friendly hello will get you an offer of food. The store has become a hive of activity, kindly donated as the staging ground for a charitable operation mobilizing volunteers and food to feed those in need.
It's the most incredible feeling.
Jenny Matthias is energy in motion, ping-ponging from talking to packing to getting crates of food loaded into cars and onto bikes.
It's like Christmas. It's like every day we've put ourselves in a position to be, hopefully, Father Christmas to everybody every day.
The pandemic didn't stop food for all. The charity, like many, got busier, but there's also been a surge in desire to help. At a time when people are struggling, sick, and dying, Brits are displaying their gratitude and getting involved. 69% of adults say Britain will be kind after the pandemic. The Office of National Statistics survey found before COVID-19, only 39% would say that. And 56% thought post-virus it would be united, a jump from 19%.
It's one of the most unifying experiences I think I've seen in this country, especially coming out of an extremely rocky period.
By that, Lauren Spielman means Brexit. Remember all of those emotionally charged rallies and debates?
I am currently on furlough, as many people are, and I am trying to do something meaningful with my furlough time.
This is the year of compassion. This COVID-19 thing may be a bad thing, but it's also given us all, everybody involved in it, which is everybody around the world, a chance to observe the compassion.
A bit of humanity when we all need it the most. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, London.
Well put. That is Global National for this Saturday. I'm Robin Gill. Tonight, Your Canada is our national animal, the beaver, having a nibble in a Calgary park. We'd love to see your corner of the country, so send us your pictures. Thank you for watching. Good night.